On October 20, 2022, at the call of the opposition, demonstrators gathered, despite the authorities' ban, in several cities across the country to protest against the 2-year extension of the transition period and the maintenance of Mahamat Idriss Déby as president of Chad. Last October 20 deserves to be inscribed in the black pages of the history of Chad. Indeed, that day, dozens of Chadians met with death as they demonstrated to challenge the 2-year extension of the political transition period and the continued power of Mahamat Idriss Déby, the son of former president. On the number of dead, the macabre counts diverge. Success Masra, the main opponent, speaks of 70 dead. The new head of government, Saleh Kebzabo, reports around 50 deaths. Among the 50 victims identified, the authorities deplore no less than 15 members of the police. The least we can say is that the Déby/Kebzabo team got off to a very bad start. For the Catholic Church, it is the first time, in Chadian memory, that we have had so many deaths in the repression of a demonstration. The two camps facing each other reject responsibility for the tragedy. For the Croquants and certain human rights movements, it is the work of the soldiery of Déby's son. On the side of power, the responsibility for the tragedy lies with the organizers of the demonstration. Success Masra and Yaya Dillo are particularly singled out. Saleh Kebzabo went so far as to accuse the latter of coup attempt and popular insurrection in order to seize power by force. We can admit that the responsibilities are shared, but let us not be afraid of words. The main culprit is the regime. To clarify things further, it's Déby Jr. He is the root of the Chadian evil. Indeed, he methodically worked to bring together all the ingredients to burn Chad. And it is against his Machiavellian plan to confiscate power that Success Masra and his comrades rose up on Thursday. According to member organizations of the International Federation for Human Rights and several Chadian media, live ammunition, torture and arbitrary arrests are ongoing and have already resulted in several deaths and serious injuries. Ambulances transporting wounded would be targeted by fire from law enforcement and security forces. A journalist was also fatally shot. Targeted kidnappings are to be feared overnight. The International Federation for Human Rights and its member organizations strongly condemn this repression and stand with the victims. Violence against unarmed protesters is not tolerable. They also recall that the disproportionate use of force constitutes violations of the fundamental freedoms enshrined in the Chadian constitution and the international and regional legal instruments ratified by Chad. The International Federation for Human Rights and its member organizations call on the African Union, the United Nations, the European Union and countries with strategic interests in Chad, in particular France, to act urgently to end violence against the civilian population in Chad. The fact that the government of Chad enjoys impunity for the crimes it commits against its population is not acceptable. The international community can no longer protect Mahamat Idriss Déby, who leads his country in defiance of all democratic rules. Strategic interests notwithstanding, tyrants should not be tolerated. In view of all these atrocities, the International Federation for Human Rights and its Chadian organizations, the Chadian Human Rights League and the Chadian Association for the Promotion and Defense of Human Rights call for an immediate halt to violent repression of demonstrations taking place in N'Djamena, Sar, Daba, Kumra, Abesh, and Mounda by the defense and security forces. They call on the international community, it must put an end to the impunity enjoyed by the Chadian transitional regime. But Déby's son must be convinced of one thing. Massive human rights abuses almost always catch up with their perpetrators. And the case of Hissène Habre, one of his predecessors, is there to support this observation.